Hi, everyone. Okay, so I'm going to go through really quickly chapter 3 and 4 with you. Chapter 3 has a lot of theories in it. So I'm going to go through some of these kind of quickly. Um, I would know, just general basic concepts for each theory. And I think these will be really helpful for you as well for your licensing exam. So a lot of this stuff I would definitely like make note cards on and kind of be familiar with a lot of the terminology for some of these theories. So the first one that the book, again, I'm going to go through these pretty quickly. I'm not going to talk a whole lot in detail about a lot of these key terms and key concepts, but I would definitely know some of these things from the textbook. Again, it'll be also really helpful for you just for in general and licensing exam information as well. So it's going to talk a little bit about field theory. It'll also talk about social exchange theory and how there's kind of costs and benefits to every exchange that we have. It's going to talk more about learning theory. Sometimes this is also called social learning theory. Um, I would be familiar with positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement. Those, again, I use those on a pretty regular basis to this day. So just familiar things to know. Cognitive behavioral theory, and something that you're going to need to be familiar with. Psychoanalytic theory, id, ego, superego. If you've ever taken a psychology class, you've probably talked about psychoanalytic theory, defense mechanisms. Again, these are something that I use pretty regularly in terms of like denial, other types of defense mechanisms that people use every day. Systems theory, this is, the main one for social work. So I would be very familiar with systems theory and a lot of the key concepts. Particularly as it relates, I think the textbook does a pretty good job of talking about systems theory as a group function and in a way, again, for this macro class, we're looking at kind of groups as well. So applying systems theory in a group setting. Empowerment theory, so kind of consciousness raising, a lot of social justice issues, how power plays a role as well. So some things to be familiar with empowerment theory. Feminist theories, there's a lot of different types of feminist theories that have come out. Radical feminism, postmodern feminism, liberal feminism, and socialist feminism are a few. There's also, again, common themes that you're going to want to know about in terms of feminist theory. So this is just kind of a brief overview about some themes and key concepts with feminist theory. So then the next thing that the textbook is going to talk about is different types of group dynamics, and particularly communication and how communication plays a role in different groups. And so there can be a lot of positive communication, nonverbal communication that happens within groups, barriers to communication, different cultural differences as it relates to communication as well. So the textbook is going to go over a lot of these different forms of communication. Other things to consider with group dynamics are interpersonal interactions, different norms and roles within groups, and then power and status. So definitely something to look at, the different sources of power within groups. It's going to also talk about leadership within groups, so leader-directed versus group-directed leadership, and the different types of approaches to leadership, whether there's a task-oriented group leader or a relationship-oriented group leader. There's pros and cons to both. And so the textbook is going to talk a little bit more about some of those differences. Personality traits of effective group leaders. So these are some of the things that have been found to be effective with group leaders. So having strong self-confidence, appropriate humility, and kind of being able to recognize when they've made a mistake and say, I'm sorry, or recognize when they were in the wrong. Intelligence, determination, trustworthiness, sociability, and social and emotional intelligence, and then flexibility as well. Um, and then some different leadership skills, promotion of the group, collecting and assessing information, and then taking action as well. So anytime you have kind of a task group or any type of group, really, there's different stages to a group development. Kind of stage one is the task group composition, the beginnings of the group, assessments, stabilization and working, and then endings and evaluation. So I would be familiar with some of these stages with group development. And then chapter 4 is going to talk more about different types of groups. And so treatment groups in particularly, I really like how it kind of breaks it up into 6 different types of treatment groups. You have a therapy group, you have a support group, you have educational groups, growth groups, socialization groups, and self-help groups. So for example, when I worked at the domestic violence agency that I was at, we had educational groups. And so we would educate individuals that would come to these groups about domestic violence and kind of the red flags, the cycle of violence, some of the power and control wheel, things like that. We would also have a parenting group, which was, again, the educational aspects of the group. But then we would also have, support groups. And so these support groups were where we were learning and growing and supporting each other kind of throughout the process. So there's different types of groups to serve organizational purposes. So you might have administrative groups, you might have different committees, certainly a board of directors, groups to serve community needs. So these might be councils, any type of social action groups that exist within a community. Social action groups and empowerment. So really the main purpose behind a lot of social action groups might be to increase understanding, kind of consciousness raising, bringing it to the forefront of the conversation, into other people's conscious, providing support, using cooperation, things like that. So those are just kind of a little overview of chapters 3 and 4 for this week. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out, and I hope you all have a great week. Thank you.